Hello and welcome back to my channel. Blake the Book Eater here, and today I'm going to talk to you about Rhythm of War, completely spoiler-filled review. So if you have not read this book, please go read the book, read the entire series, and then come back and we're going to have a whole-on discussion about it. But before you go, make sure you follow me on my socials, on Instagram and Twitter for updates about life, etc. Now, if you have not read this book, I'm going to spoil everything in this very long review, so be warned. So, Rhythm of War is the fourth book in Brandon Sanderson's The Stormlight Archive, as I'm sure you know if you haven't already left. I originally had, I filmed this video like 2 times, and the other ones were more scripted and had more notes and observations, and after I finished filming I had erased all the files because I need more storage and that kind of stuff. So now I'm coming at you with just kind of stream of consciousness thought about Rhythm of War as a whole, and I probably do have a lot to talk about because this is, I consider now, one of my favorite books of all time. Yeah, if you couldn't tell, I loved this book. I thought it was a masterpiece, 5 out of 5 stars. So yeah, let's talk about it. So the first thing that I want to talk about in this book is just Kaladin. I might go character by character. That's probably the easiest way to talk about this book as a whole. But so Kaladin in this book really just, I mean, he's been amazing in all the other books, but I think Brandon really nailed his characterization in Rhythm of War, especially in regards to his mental illness, depression. I also suffer, and it's rough. And Kaladin just goes through some of the worst shit imaginable in this book, especially with fucking Moash trying to convince him to kill himself. So there was a lot of very triggering moments in this book, but it was done in a way that I think served the narrative extremely well, especially when Kaladin set up the basically he's taking care of the other people in Erethiru with mental illness because they've been forgotten about. They've been locked away in the dark by the Ardents. And that was just some of the most touching stuff in the entire novel to me, just because these people who had no hope, who had given up on everything, were finally being paid attention to by someone that they all look up to. And I love what Brandon did by subverting expectations and having Kaladin not be captain of the Windrunners anymore. He's not in charge. He is taking a step back, and when I first read that, I was shocked, and I thought that it was the wrong decision. But after reading the rest of the book, I really understood why Kaladin needed the break, because I mean, he's been fighting for so long, he hasn't really had a chance to step back and reevaluate things. And so having him spend time with his family was awesome, even though Lirin was very difficult towards Kaladin. It gave Kaladin, I think, a real sense of purpose, just helping people. I mean, he was helping people by protecting them the way that he thought he needed to. And then so in this book, he's starting to more go towards what Lirin originally wanted him to do. But it's not like there is a cut and dry answer of just being a warrior or just being a surgeon. Kaladin is both. And it's very hard for Lirin to understand that. But I think Kaladin just dealt with everything as well as he could, because Syl in this book, she started to kind of pick up on Kaladin's depression, and I think that's Dalinar's fault, honestly, because I think he connected Syl, capital C connected Syl with Kaladin in a way that she didn't expect. I mean, she asked him to, and I don't even know if Dalinar honestly knew what he did. But so now Syl, I think, really understands Kaladin in a more fundamental way that she didn't before. And that was just really intriguing to me as a reader, because Syl has almost been this kind of force of nature who's been very uplifting and good, and kind of very much the opposite of Kaladin's personality for the entire series so far. So in this book, we have Syl really start to honestly like be more human and less Spren, and start to really empathize with Kaladin in a way that like she couldn't really understand before. So all that stuff I thought was extremely well done, and just the end of Kaladin's arc in this book just made me sob. Like when Lirin was falling from the tower and Kaladin was just tried everything he could to save him, and he was trying to swear the fourth ideal, and then he heard Tien's voice, and well, honestly, he talked with Tien, somehow through the spiritual realm, and then we also heard Teft's voice. I'll get to Teft in a moment, but yeah, just that whole situation, just Kaladin has overcome so much in this entire series, and it's not saying that like at the end of this book he's cured, his depression is gone. It's really not, but I think he's in a better place than he was, and that just makes me so happy to see, because I love Kaladin so much. He's probably my favorite fictional character ever, period. And so just seeing him having to go through all that and come out the other side, and it's just amazing. And also, I've been talking about overall general character arc, but like there's so many other fantastic moments, like when he's basically being Bruce Willis and Die Hard in your hero, scampering around, and the whole thing with Lezian I thought was wonderful. The pursuer, who the defeated one, let me say, that was. Okay, that also scares me at the end, because the way that Kaladin killed Lezian was very brutal. And in the description, Brandon said that his eyes, I think, like glowed like yellow or red or something. That scares me, because does that mean that Odium is trying to have Kaladin become his champion? And we'll talk about Odium in a bit. But yeah, so we don't really know what stands where, because everything has changed by the end of this book. And we only have 10 days left necessarily, and so book 5 is going to be, I think, very fast paced, and I'm kind of scared. Okay, so the next characters that I would love to talk about are Shallan and Adolin, who are still just like my favorite couple. I love them so much. I know a lot of people shipped Shallan and Kaladin after their scene in book 2. But I think Shallan and Adolin just balance each other out so well, and just wait, hold on. Can I take a second to just appreciate how amazing Adolin is as a character? He is just like if a golden retriever was a human being, that is Adolin Kholin, and the way he just like supports and is like a ride or die for Shallan, for Kaladin, for Renarin. Like, Adolin is just best boy, and I will not tolerate any Adolin slander on this channel ever. And Adolin and Shallan's relationship, I think, is at the most interesting head in this book, because Shallan is kind of almost very comfortable in her persona as the three, Shallan, Veil, and Radiant, who are the three aspects of herself. And Adolin is just very comfortable with all three of them. They all interact with him in a very different way, of course. Veil treats him like a drinking buddy, and also Veil checks out other girls, which was awesome. Just like a cute little snippet, as well as Kaladin. So Veil is bisexual queen. And then Shallan, obviously she was going through some shit in this book, because she retreated a lot and kind of forced her personas to take over for large portions of the book. Especially Veil and Radiant, I think, got a very much chance to shine in this book as much as they could, because they were starting to form in book 3, and like we were getting hints of them here and there, but it didn't really feel like they were completely separate from Shallan yet. In this book they feel completely separate from Shallan, so Shallan is kind of shifting between the two of them, and it feels very natural, and it feels like they are very much parts of her, but like separate from her, and that was done very well. And I really loved Radiant. I thought was, because Radiant was kind of a personality in the last book, but she really became like a personality in this book. And I think after the end of this book, where Shallan kind of absorbs Veil back into her, Radiant, I think, is the portion of her that she still kind of needs to rely on. And maybe she does eventually absorb her and become whole, but I don't think that is necessary. I don't think that has to happen. It could, it might. I don't necessarily know what Brandon's gonna do. I just know that like Shallan's character means a lot to a lot of people who do have DID, which is kind of what Shallan's personalities are based on, and that shifting, and Brandon Sanderson, I think, has done a fantastic job just illustrating mental illness in this series very well. It was funny because I think at first he didn't mean to really get into it, but then he realized that it would be more harmful to kind of say it's something like DID or something like depression, but we're not going to put a name to it. We're not going to have like actual kind of like tangible things from the actual illnesses present in the book. And so he changed that, and has done a lot of research, has a lot of beta readers, and I think that very much shows, because this book, I think, out of all of them, felt the most authentic to the characters' emotional journeys. Even in the novella Dawn Shard, which if you haven't read, it's amazing. I would go read that. I'm not going to spoil anything here, I don't think, but it does have a lot to do with the Cosmere. But specifically with that book with Risen, after the events, I mean, if you're here, you know, after the events in Words of Radiance, Risen is a paraplegic now. She can't move. So the way that Brandon Sanderson just incorporated that aspect of her character in Dawn Shard was extremely well done, because he reached out and got a lot of paraplegic beta readers and people with other disabilities like that, and they gave a lot of feedback, and just like so many little tidbits kind of showed, and it was portions of that I was able to pick out and kind of feel like this is something that was consulted on or mentioned or suggested to him, because it just feels very authentic. Obviously, I can't speak to any of those experiences, to DID or being a paraplegic or having a disability like that. But I think, and from what I've heard from other people, it's been very well done. So there's that. Okay. And now I'm just going to talk about Shallan and Adolin's like bigger plot, and so they had to go to Lasting Integrity to try to convince the Honor Spren to return and start to bond with the humans. And we find out at the beginning of the book that there are a lot more Knights Radiants now, because there is a huge jump between Oathbringer and Rhythm of War. So we have like squads of edge dancers now. Like there are whole like teams of Radiants now, and we get to know like some of them here and there, but it was just like really fascinating how, you know, just one book ago we like knew very intimately all the Knights Radiants that we know of, that were present, that were created, that had been bonded, and now there's like dozens and dozens, maybe even hundreds, I don't know. So it just feels like we're scaling up now. We're becoming more, things are happening, obviously. And it's just very exciting to see. So Shallan and Aelin, when they get to Lasting Integrity, well, first of all, their journey to Lasting Integrity was awesome. I loved the tension of there being a spy, that Shallan didn't know who the spy was. I thought the reveal that it was Pattern was great. I also hated that because I had to wait a whole part. I think it was the end of like part 3 or part 2 that we found that out, and then we had to wait to see Shallan or Aelin's perspectives until a whole part from then. That was so stressful because I was like, is it Pattern? Like, because I love Pattern. I think Pattern is my favorite Spren. I think he's hilarious and just adorable, and I love Pattern. So I love that he was just asking Wit for advice, because I mean, to be honest, like I would ask Wit for advice too. If I was just confused, I'd be like, hey, I'm gonna use a Sion to talk to Wit. And can we just talk about how hot Adolin is? Because that fight scene with the kind of rogues in Shadesmar, oh wow, that was amazing. With him and Maya, and then Maya stepped in and was fighting with him. That was like one of the coolest moments in the book to me, just because it really showed how much that Maya like trusts Adolin, and it really shows us that being a Deadeyes is not necessarily dead. That was, I mean, we got hints of that in the end of book 3, but now and I love how all the other characters are like, what is going on? And Adolin's like, it's just how it is. And they're like, this is weird. And he's like, eh. So then they had Adolin stand trial, which I loved. I loved just that whole thing. You know, the Honor Stone were being dicks. obviously they were assholes and they just wanted to pin all of humanity's sins on Adolin, which was very unfair, but he pushed through it, and I feel like he made some good arguments, but in the end, who saved his ass? It was Maya. And one of the most I got chills that moment when she said that we chose, because it just changes everything that we thought we knew about the Recreants. And, you know, the Recreants is one of those things that's been mentioned in, like, every book. And we get snippets here and there, and we're like, okay, I think we know what happened. But that just, like, really confirmed that we're like, we don't know what the hell happened. And, you know, we can theorize forever, but I just think we're really not going to know. Maybe until the next book, because I feel like Ba-Ado Mishram, who was the unmade that caused all the Parshmen to lose their sentience, basically, that's connected to her. So something with the Recreants, with Ba-Ado Mishram, and there's just a lot going on in the past that we just don't know. There's lots of mysteries, and I feel like once we know and then we go back and read, it's going to become very obvious, and we're like, why did we not see these clues? Brandon Sanderson is great at hiding clues in plain sight. That's why. Also, I love the fact that we got to see the Herald, Kellic, because we have only seen his perspective very briefly once in the prelude, way back in book 1. So it feels very weird to see him again. I mean, we've seen like little bits and pieces of him at the flashbacks to the nights of Gavilar's assassination, but we haven't really gotten to know him. I feel like the only Herald that we really know that well is Nail. Even Shalash and Taln, like at the end of book 3, I was like, oh my god, they're going to be such a big part of the next book. And then they weren't. Like, they weren't even in it. They were just talked about. And I was, like, really frustrated because I was like, Brandon, I want to see the Heralds. And he was like, no, you have to wait. So that was really frustrating. But I think getting to know Kellic was really interesting, because I think he's very like Nail in a lot of ways, but very different. Because he's a coward, obviously. But just seeing how the Herald's insanity kind of manifested very differently is just so intriguing to me. Like, Ash is obviously tearing down all the images of herself. Talton is basically catatonic. We don't really know what happened to Jezrien. I mean, Jezrien was just kind of like a drunk old man whom Ash killed. And so, and then, yeah, Nail's just insane. But yeah, Kellic was interesting. The most interesting thing, obviously, I think with this whole Shallan plotline is obviously Reyes is an asshole. I think we all knew that. But when he captured Lift, oof, not fun. But so at the end of the book, when Shallan cuts ties with the Ghostbloods, which the Ghostbloods have always been fascinating to me, but in this book, it's like, oh my, we get so much with the Ghostbloods, and we start to really understand how Cosmere aware they are. And okay, I'm gonna briefly talk about a big Cosmere spoiler. So if you have not read all the Mistborn books, Elantris, Warbreaker, if you're not caught up with the Cosmere, skip this next bit and then come back after you have, because this is a huge Cosmere spoiler. So I'm just gonna, I'll put like a spoiler mark here until I'm done talking. So Theta is Kelsier. What? That was insane. Like, this is like, Brandon is such, like, so big brained for this entire, like, Cosmere, obviously, but just him laying hints like that, like, I mean, I freaked out when I thought that Kelsier, like, I thought Kelsier died, and then, you know, at the end of Mistborn Era 2, it's like, psych, and then Mistborn Secret History, I was like, oh my, what is going on? And so, and it's like, where's Kelsier? What is he up to? So apparently, the Ghostbloods is what he's been up to. He's become the head of this Cosmere spanning secret society organization. And what are they hunting? What are they doing? They want to get Stormlight off world, probably because it's like such an easy source of investiture. But I don't like. So Shallan is going up against Kelsier. Like, this isn't. I'm so excited to see where this plot goes. And is Theta gonna show up in book 5? Is he going to show up in the back half of the series? Like, I just cannot wait for Kelsier to show up and fuck some shit up, because that's what he's gonna do. And I'm terrified because, you know, Kelsier is one of those heroes who you care about and you're like on their side, but it's also, you realize that you're kind of lucky that they're on your side because they're so ruthless. And so I don't think Kelsier is necessarily bad. I just think that what he wants and what the Ghostbloods want is just going to be counter to some of what our main characters want and think is okay. And Kelsier, I think, won't have any problems with culling the herd. So, okay, we're done with spoilers. We're done with Cosmere spoilers, so you can come back. So yeah, I'm very excited to see where Shallan's story goes in book 5, because it does seem she's become more Cosmere aware, and she knows about the existence of other planets now, other people on those planets, traveling. She can't travel because she's a Knights Radiant, which is interesting that the Knights are so bonded to Roshar that they can't leave. So are we gonna figure out a way around that? Like, we'll see. Okay, I'm sorry this is so long, but we have a lot to talk about. So the next we have Nivani, because to be honest, this was Nivani's book. I know the flashbacks were Venli, and Venli was a huge part of this book, obviously, and I love her. But we gotta talk about Nivani for a hot sec, because this, like, she's always been a great character, hands down. But in this book particularly, she just became the MVP in so many different ways. Like, her and Raboniel, their dynamic was just fascinating, because when we're first introduced to Raboniel, it is through Venli's perspective, and all the Fused are like scared of her. So that made me scared of her, and I was scared of her for like half the book. And but then as Nivani and Raboniel started to like get to know each other better, and it just became this very fascinating dynamic where they were both working towards what they wanted. You know, they both wanted to find out the secrets of the sciences and like those kind of mysteries, but they were still at odds with one another. So it made this very interesting dynamic while they were making discoveries while withholding things. And I just loved that, because it made me just so invested on both sides. And it was a dynamic that I thought was just so well played out. And I know a lot of people think Raboniel is sexy. And you know what? After the end of the book, I'm gonna have to agree, because she's amazing. Just her character development. I know I was talking about Nivani, but just mentioning Raboniel, just the whole fact that she didn't care about who won. She just wanted it to end. And like that gift she gave Nivani of just like, Raboniel is just amazing, great character. Like, and I cried when she had to murder her daughter, and she felt like that was like her release, and that she sacrificed herself. Like, Raboniel is such a great character. I want to see more of her. Please, I know she's dead, but like, Brandon, please figure out a way to like. I would like to see her. I would like flashbacks. I want something, okay? But so Nivani had to deal with imposter syndrome like the whole book, and okay, the prologue pissed me off. The prologue pissed me off so much. I mean, we always knew that Gavilar was kind of up to some sketchy stuff, but like, in this book, we finally understand how much of a shitty person he was. He treated Nivani like dirt. And honestly, he deserved to die. I can't wait for the prologue in book 5 where we get to see him die again, because I want to see him die again. He deserved it. And so Nivani is just so smart, and she comes up with a lot of like very innovative things. Obviously, she has a team of scholars working for her, but a lot of the times it was her connections that were putting the things together to make the discoveries possible. And she kept being like, I'm not a scholar, I'm not a scholar, I'm not a scholar. And Raboniel was like, bitch, you are. And it just took a lot for Nivani to finally realize that like she is worth it. The things that she was doing did matter, and that like she was smart enough to try to like fool out the Parshendi and save her people. And you know what? She did that. So I love Nivani so much, and let me tell you, there's no like plot point that can ever be as satisfying to me as when Nivani screamed, "Journey before destination, you bastard," at Moash before. Just queen shit. Nivani, literal queen shit. And then Also, her dynamic with the sibling was great because we've seen like the Stormfather be kind of like a reluctant Bond, but the sibling was like even more like reluctant because they had been, you know, very hurt, and if they were to bond and their human was to die, that was it. Like, no more protection for anybody. So the sibling just like had been hiding all these years, and I thought that like their conversations, Nivani and the sibling, like back and forth, were just, again, so fascinating to read. And, you know, Brandon had seeded the sibling and like the tower being alive in Oathbringer, but I think it was very natural, and it didn't feel like a twist when it was revealed. It just felt like, oh, that's what's going on. And so a lot of the stuff in this book really felt like that. There were twists, to be fair, but a lot of the time it felt just like a very natural extension of what had been happening. And I thought, like, so those payoffs worked very, very well for me. So yeah, I'm very excited to see what's going to happen now that Nivani is a bondsmith, and, you know, she's married to Dalinar, who's also a bondsmith. So we have two bondsmiths now. Who is going to bond the Night Watcher? I'm scared of whoever does. And I would also I'm going to take a sec, or we're going to take a couple minutes actually. We're going to talk about Venli, because I understand a lot of people don't like Venli. And I understand that to a degree. I think she's so well written though. I love Venli, just unironically as a character, because I think she's just so fascinating in the fact that she goes against, like, or she for most of the series, really, she wants very opposite of what our protagonists want, and she just wants to help her people. Like that's at the core of what her whole belief system is. And yeah, she's going about it in kind of a sketchy way, and got a lot of people killed. But in this book especially, and you know, a lot of people thought that the flashbacks weren't great or weren't as meaningful as some of the other flashbacks, and I disagree, because this gave so much characterization to Venli as to like why she was doing what she was doing, the whole kind of sibling rivalry thing that she had with Eshanai, you know, and Eshanai herself. I loved getting more of Eshanai because I love her, I miss her, but just that kind of strained dynamic where Eshanai doesn't want to or do everything that her people want her to do, and she wanted to explore, and Venli just wanted to always be the perfect daughter, and Eshanai kept kind of upshowing her without meaning to. So that pushed Venli to more and more extremes to try to save her people, as she believed she had to. You know, Ulim led her astray, obviously, but and there were interesting things like that. I mean, the terrace woman who showed up and gave Nivani the jewel with Ulim in it. Don't know who she is or what she's doing. Maybe she's a ghost blood. I don't know at this point. But just Venli, and then I loved seeing the fact that their mother, Jaxlim, was suffering from like Alzheimer's, basically. And it was just very touching just how Venli and Eshanai had to deal with that, and how that honestly brought the humanity out of Venli. I'm using humanity loosely, because I'm not saying that the Parshendi or the singers, the listeners, should be analogous to humans, but just very empathetic, I think, and in a way that made me resonate with the character a lot more, because I think the listeners just as a whole are fascinating, and I love them. And I think, you know, a lot of people, I keep saying that, but like, I mean, these are just opinions that I've seen. You know, people did criticize, I think, the first two books in the series for not really delving into the Parshendi, the listeners, the singers, and just kind of characterize them as like the bad guys. And I think that the last two books have done such a good job of kind of deconstructing all of our heroes' preconceived notions about them. I mean, Kaladin's whole journey in Oathbringer with getting to know some of the listeners, and then having be conflicted and couldn't save any of them at the end of, or in the middle of that book. There's so many pages, so like it feels like the end, but it was in the middle. Kolinar was in the middle. But so in this book, I think just that characterization is even more well done, because Venli is the last listener. She is, or what she thinks is, the last of her people. And so then her discovering that Relaine is still alive, and I thought Relaine was the perfect counterbalance to Venli as well, because he kind of looked at her in horror and was like, okay, you are a traitor to our people. Like, you did this to us. And so we had, obviously we know that she regrets what she does or did. But she, Venli is not a very smooth and like person. She is very prickly and doesn't want to admit that she's wrong. And I'm charmed by that, because I think I don't like having perfect characters in books. I think that when we try to have every character act perfect or act nice, they just become kind of boring. And so Venli is a character who just kind of innately has a lot of conflict around her and causes a lot of conflict. But I think she is trying to do better. And genuinely, her relationship with Leshwi, I think, was great. Just kind of like a mistress servant type relationship, but like in a very loving way, where Leshwi just really wants the Spren to return. Like, she feels like their people like were abandoned by the Spren, and the fact that Venli had bonded with a Spren, she was like overwhelmed with emotion. And I started getting choked up around then too, because I'm like, this also again it shows that the Fused are not like a monolith. They're not just all bad. And I mean, at the end, when half the Fused turned against the other Fused with Leshwi, it's just going to make some very interesting dynamics, I think, in book 5, because we're going to have Fused and singers and listeners fighting with the humans against Odium's forces, which include humans as well. So it's just like the lines have become way less defined, and I think that's a great thing. Next, I just want to briefly talk about Eshanai, because the end of this book, when we got Eshanai's final flashback, just broke my heart in so many ways, because she is a character that I loved in book 2, even when she was starting to be corrupted by like her storm form. I think she was just so fascinating, and just I loved her. And so even in this book, we got to know Venli, which was awesome, and just those snippets of Eshanai again were beautiful. And when the Stormfather let Eshanai ride the storm one last time and finally explore beyond the lands of her people, and she was able to see how big and wide the world was, that just touched me in such a beautiful way. That's all I want to say. I just loved that chapter. And I do think that I feel like Sanderson almost regrets killing Eshanai, because so many people did love her, but I think that did allow Venli to step in and become a bigger character of her own, and I'm very grateful for that. But also that final chapter, that last Eshanai flashback, was what I needed for closure, because I got no closure. She died off screen, okay? And so now it was just so good. Just one of the most beautiful moments, I think, in the entire Cosmere, honestly. I mean, there's so much to talk about in this book. I'm gonna try to hit it all. So Dalinar and Yazna were barely in this book, which honestly I was kind of fine with. I obviously I want more of them, because I do love them, their characters, but at the same time, the other characters are so great that I didn't necessarily miss them. But the stuff we did get with them was great. We got Yazna killing Ruthar, basically, and then bringing him back to life and being like, okay, get the fuck out of here. Also, Yazna and Wit, did not expect that pairing. Did not. But you know what? I'm the more I've thought about it, I'm not mad at it. I think, it's very interesting, because I feel like they both have secrets that they're keeping in their relationship, and I would just love to be a fly on the wall to hear some of their private conversations, because Brandon hints so many times, Yazna and went off and we're talking, and I'm like, tell me what you were talking about. Obviously they're talking about some big Cosmere stuff, and I'm sitting over here let me know. Also, I just love the fact that Brandon acknowledged the fact that Yazna is asexual. I think he did it in a very not subtle, because it was very obvious, I think, but in a very well done way, and it just fits her character very well, I think, because I think that Yazna does care more about a person's like mind and who she's with, kind of more emotionally and mentally than physically. Not saying that she couldn't be physical if she wanted to, but it seems like that doesn't matter to her, or she doesn't want to do it. Wit, it seems, is very horny, but she gave him that bare safe hand and was like, that's all you're getting. So... And then Dalinar, he is doing some very crazy bondsmith stuff. I don't know what the hell is going on. I don't know what his powers are. And honestly, nobody knows what the hell his powers are. So he has to go and try to ask one of the other heralds, I'm blanking on his name right now, Ishar. He had to go ask Ishar, like, basically, hey, help me learn my power. And Ishar's like, I'm fucking insane, yo. And then he's experimenting on Spren and bringing them, like, their cognitive realm forms into the physical realm. That was horrific. Like, I don't know what the hell is going on. Like, seriously. He, like, as a herald, he scares me. He's such a wild card. I don't know what's gonna happen with him. But, yeah. Also, I love just the setup at the end of the book, that Szeth and Kaladin are gonna go to Shinovar in book 5, and yeah, so we're gonna have a little buddy adventure, which is amazing. I cannot wait to see that. And I fully support Szeth in his actions, because just from the sound of it, from Ishar, from what we heard, the people in charge in Shinovar basically killed Szeth's father for no reason, and obviously they made Szeth think that he was truthless, and you know, we know how many deaths that was responsible for, because we saw it happen. So, and then I'm trying to think of more things to talk about, because I know there's a lot. Oh my god. Okay, slight kind of word of Brandon spoilers, but like, I think it was very obvious in this book. But R'lyeh and Renarin have a crush on each other. That's amazing. I love that so much, because it was hinted at, like, I think it was very much hinted at very strongly when R'lyeh was talking about the fact that when he was in mate form, there was like an issue, or something happened basically when he went to mate form, and my gay brain was like, he's gay. And then you know, when Renarin like sent him a corrupted Spren and was like, hey, this for you, like, that's gay as hell. And then Brandon basically confirmed it, or no, he did confirm it. Well, actually Adam confirmed it in the stream, but it's a win for us anyways. So they're so cute, and I would love to see more of them. Hey, I just want to briefly talk about something, because it's been an issue. It comes up every couple months. Brandon Sanderson is not homophobic, and I hate this narrative that he is, because he has been so inclusive in his books and stuff, and to the community as a whole, and I think it's very unfair to characterize him as such, and use his name in the same breath as J.K. Rowling, who is a TERF and a transphobe. Brandon is none of those. I think a lot of this stems from the fact that Brandon Sanderson is Mormon, and a lot of people characterize Mormons as very just kind of anti-LGBT. Now, Brandon did publish a blog post in like 2006, which, mind you, is like 15 years ago, where he did say that he's fine with gay people, but he maybe had an issue with like the legality of it based on his religion, that kind of thing. Less than like a year later, he apologized for that. He learned like how much that kind of sentiment hurt gay people, such as myself, and so he became educated on the issues, and ever since then, he has been an ally. And like, I do not think that someone who is homophobic or transphobic would go out of their way to include LGBTQ characters in their fantasy works. You know, the Stormlight, Szeth is like the only Caucasian character. All the other characters are tan-skinned or dark-skinned. There are gay characters. There's a couple trans characters. Well, at least one canon one. And so it's just, And also in his interviews and things like that, he said multiple times that he wants the Cosmere to reflect real life, and if he did not include people like gay people, trans people, people of all races, sexualities, etc., it would be evil, because he would be erasing that group from being represented in his work. And so I just want to leave you with that. I could pull up the receipts, I could sit here for an hour and talk about it, but honestly, I'm just kind of exhausted talking about it over and over again, because it feels like the people just kind of want to bring it up just to cancel him without even acknowledging the fact that there's been 15 years of growth. Just because personally, if you are hurt by, that blog post, that's totally valid. But also you cannot discount the amount of growth that he has made in the last 15 years. If you choose personally to just ignore that growth, that's on you, but you can acknowledge the fact that it doesn't exist. Where someone is J.K. Rowling, they have had multiple opportunities to grow and educate themselves, but she's doubled down. And that's why you're never going to see me talk about Harry Potter on this channel, because her words and her actions just hurt so many people, and it's not okay. And yeah, there's just so many problems with J.K. Rowling. I could do a whole video about it. I don't really want to, just because it's exhausting as a queer person to try to just read all that hateful rhetoric where, but anyways, fuck her. But Brandon is just very welcoming, and he loves his readers, and he's also just one of the kindest people and authors that I think I've had the pleasure of reading, knowing about, that kind of thing. Yeah, if you want to look into other fantasy authors, there are definitely some more problematic fantasy authors. I can tell you that. There were allegations that came out last year against multiple of them. Whereas Brandon Sanderson just posted a live stream with his kid where they reviewed memes about the Cosmere. They are not the same. But anyways, that's just a short little rant. I don't want to get, too caught up in everything. But yeah, Brandon Sanderson is not homophobic. There you go, period. The Dog and the Dragon. The Dog and the Dragon was, I think, my favorite chapter in the whole damn book. It made me sob. I feel like all of Whit's stories in the past, in Oathbringer, made me sob when he was talking to Shallan about the girl who looked up. And now The Dog and the Dragon made me sob. Whit is just low-key my therapist. I don't have to pay him. I just read his words, and that's fine. But yeah, Hoyd is always just a pleasure in all of the stories, and I think I love that in the last couple of books I really have gotten a sense of how much Hoyd/Whit really cares about the people on Roshar. Obviously, I think he has cared about people on other worlds too, but I think he's so kind to Shallan and Kaladin, and I love seeing that. I love seeing the characters treat my favorite characters with love, because they need love, and they haven't been getting enough of it, so they need all that they can get. And last but not least, we have to talk about the big thing, the big T thing, the Taravangian thing. So Taravangian is odium now. What the fuck? So I think a lot of the times you can kind of telegraph some of Brandon Sanderson's plot points. He has great twists, but this one hit me like a truck. I love Taravangian's chapters in the interludes, and it honestly made me care about him more because, he's always been seesawing. He's a terrible person, obviously, but just in this book, I think because he's so far removed from his super intelligence, and he's been falling back on his emotion, and he's weak a lot, it really gave me a better sense of how much it's costing him to try to save as much as he can from what he believes is an unbeatable force. And so I was kind of I kind of want old man Taravangian to be our savior, and he's not a good person, but maybe he can stick it to him one last time or something. And then he picks up Nightblood and murders Reyes and descends, and I'm more scared now. Because Reyes was the evil that we knew, whereas Taravangian, I think is just a wild card because, you know, Rey's had plans to kind of like go and traverse the stars and like conquer all the other shards. What does Taravangian want to do as Odium Shard? Is this like, and the thing is, because I think Cultivation's boons has, they've been really, at least seemingly good. And her meddling, I think, has been in the favor of our characters. But now, after this huge twist, and he meets Cultivation after he ascends, I'm just questioning everything. Because is Cultivation, like, so she obviously wanted Odium to ascend. But why? Is Cultivation gonna end up being bad? Like, and so it's things like this that keep me up at night. And especially that epilogue when Taravangian, or Todium, as lots of people have become to call him, steals Wit's memories, and Hoy doesn't even notice that they're gone. So this is like what scares me, is the fact that Taravangian now has so much power. Like, what is he gonna do? I don't know. And in a couple hours, I'm probably going to think about something that I forgot to mention, and it's going to piss me off. But as of right now, I think that's pretty much all that I wanted to talk about with you guys today. Please comment below what your favorite moment from Rhythm of War is, because this is a spoiler chat, so you guys can be as spoilery as you want in the comments. Please give this video a like, a share. Tell your friends about this video if they also have read Rhythm of War and need to debrief about it like I did. I mean, it took me like a month to process everything that had happened. I'm still not over most of it. Honestly, I'm kind of glad that there's going to be such a little buffer between me and book 5, because I need to recuperate. Like, I'm going to need 3 years to like get my brain in order to read book 5. So until then, we have brand new Cosmere content coming out pretty frequently, I think. Because Brandon Sanderson, he just publishes everything so fast. He's such a fast writer. We're going to have The Lost Metal, which is the last book in the Wax and Wane series, Mistborn Era 2, coming very soon, I think. Hopefully by like early 2022, because I don't want to wait that much longer. I love Wax and Wane, and I need the conclusion, you know? But anyways, that's it for this video. So I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.